y'all, I'm Barbie from Barbie and the Caveman, where a balanced table is a happy table. Now, I'm a casual vegan, and my husband's a carnivore, and my little egg's complicated. So my purpose is to take vegan recipes and adapt them to any diet. Join me today for Barbie. With an apron on, we're gonna make something warm and comforting. It's gonna be a terrific thing with some eggplant lasagna. Yes, who doesn't love eggplant lasagna? I know, I ask myself that every single day. My husband says many people. I don't believe him, no I don't. But I do know many people do. Now, the trick to eggplant lasagna is one, thinly cut pieces. I'm gonna show you how to do that. Of course, it's with a bread knife. Now, people tell you, now Barbie, you can't make eggplant with a bread knife. Yes, I can, and it's good. Stay with me. All right. So this is how we start. Now, I like this curved side 11 by 13 pan. Now, if you're going to cheat like me, I love a good can of diced tomatoes. And I put a good layer of that in the bottom of my pan so that the noodles don't stick. Now I fan it out nicely. I had a napkin here, where'd it go? A cloth. I then take my garlic powder, do a layer of garlic powder over those tomatoes, just again to make a base for my noodles. And I take my noodles. Now, I am not a fan of cooking the noodles before I cook the casserole. Why would I cook before I cook? No, I don't actually know what that means. So we're just going to put in a layer of, and just break it to fit. I mean, it falls apart. It's not neuroscience, it's cooking. Now, from here, nutritional yeast. Now, if you're not going to use cheese, you want to make sure that you use a plenty and a heavy hand of nutritional yeast. Now, we have our eggplant. Notice I have the tomatoes here ready because we're going to have a layer of eggplant, and now the thinner that you can cut the eggplant, the better. And then you just want to layer it in like you layer in the noodles for the lasagna. That's why I use a bread knife, is because I can get it much thinner. Like in some places you can kind of see through, and then I layer them in alternating patterns, so that the bulb of the eggplant is on the different layer. Oop, got it too thin there, but that's not gonna slow me down, not at all. You just relayer and keep going. Now, you can go through probably 2 eggplants relatively easy in this recipe, getting lots of veggies in the bellies of your family members, especially the cavemen amongst us. And trust me, Barbies, I understand. There are times where all you want your man to eat is just something that's not a hamburger or fries or, I don't know, kill me, sweet potato fries. There are just times. So then, after you finish with your layer of eggplant, now you want, the trick here is, I don't know if you can see this, is to really almost shave the edge of the tomatoes, like really, really thin, so that they're going over the top of the eggplant in the most delicate way. Because, as I am going to take you through in a moment, once we get this layer of tomatoes down, we're going to move into the tofu version. Now, the tofu is the substitute for the cheese that goes in between. Yeah, that was the oven. It's been preheating. Hey, I don't want to waste you guys' time. I know you got places to be, you got lasagnas to make. So I have preheated the oven to 395 degrees for a couple of reasons. One, it's faster than 350. It's more delicious than 425 because that really dries out the top layer. And what number are we on? I don't even remember. Anyway, the last reason is it's a nice, easy temperature that doesn't warm up your house too terribly much. And in Florida, although, you know, it's starting to cool down and we're all of, you know, 66, degrees, frigidly, 66 degrees and such, I still don't want my house nice and hot. I have the layer of tomatoes on. Now the difference between the tomatoes, of course, is that some tomatoes are very, very ripe and some are very, well, non-ripe. It really depends on where you got them out of the garden or what farmer's market you got them for. This tomato, of course, is much harsher and much less raw than, whoop, it's falling apart, than this tomato. Now I would encourage you, of course, to layer the tomatoes intermittently so that you get a consistency of flavor. The sweetness, say, of the extremely ripe tomatoes can off-balance the somewhat bitterness or the firmness of the not so ripe tomatoes. Now, got a bowl here. I've also got a container of extra firm plus tofu, if you can see. Now I slit the top of the firm tofu and I'm just draining out the liquid. Then going to take my bread knife, slit it down the other two sides. Now this is not because I love symmetry, although I do. I'm a teacher, I love symmetry. It's just a beautiful thing in my world. But I'm going to continue to squeeze out the liquid. I did wash my hands, I promise, twice. So really squeeze out the liquid. Now I've got some paper towels here. And so then I kind of make a sandwich with the tofu in the center. This is to really, really dry out that tofu, because remember, this is replacing the cheese that's in your lasagna, and you don't want it to be really too dry. You want it to be nice and crumbly so that when you run it through the blender, yes, I said the blender, it's going to crumble nicely and then have a really nice mouthfeel like the original cheese in a lasagna does. Now, of course, look at the liquid which we pulled out. Can you see it? Yeah, it's really, really nice and yellow. That means that the water-soluble vitamins of the bees have really come out of the original tofu block. So we're going to want to replace those with nutritional yeast that you saw that I sprinkled in over the, bottom layer of the lasagna. But also in this, once we get it into the blender, we're going to sprinkle in some nutritional yeast, yes, but also some brewer's yeast to make sure that we really cover the gamut of those B vitamins that we lost in draining the liquid from the vitamins. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit. The trick that I use is I put it down, I put the bowl on top. I've got my blender here. Now it's time to make the ricotta cheese. Now remember this little tofu packet we made earlier? We want to really, really squeeze it and make sure we got all the moisture out of it. And then we take our wonderful container here and just break it. Now notice how it's very sponge-like at this place. Now just break it into pieces. Yes? Yes, we do that. Now we put in about a solid tablespoon of dried oregano. You can just hold on to it. Beat like hell. It's about a tablespoon. Now, some curry powder. Put about 1/4 of a teaspoon of curry powder. Now this just gives it a complexity that, of course, you guys have come to expect. The smoked paprika is really important. Again, 1/4 teaspoon. Now, this is a surprise ingredient for all of us. It is a chili powder. Now, the chili powder helps round out. It's just like 1/8 of a teaspoon. It's just a tiny little bit. Trust me, it's not going to make anything spicy. It just gives a flat flavor, a roundness that's really, really nice. Now, I don't know if you guys can see here, but I have a little cutting board with a full lemon. Now, I'm going to roll the lemon this way, to try to make it really nice and mushy. The reason being that brings the juice, it breaks the pockets within the lemon. And then I have a nice little juicer here. It's a terrific little beauty. You pull the top off, it's got all the ick on it. I just throw it right on top of the paper towel thing. Done. Pour that in over the top of everything else. Now I kind of pour it over a little bit because it's going to need a little bit of liquid. Now, I also have a cup of the broth that we made as our stock broth that I did in the another episode. So recognize that you can just put a little bit of that in, about half. And you're going to start here. Put it up here. Now, you're going to need a damper because it's going to be really dry. Make sure it gets really down good on your blender. You want it set to stage 1. Here we go. Now notice that it really doesn't move much. And you want to move it up gently, all the way to stage 9 where you're going to actually need your damper. And off. Now, you want us to maintain a little bit of a crumbliness. You can see it still has a bit of a crumbliness. I may have put a little too much liquid in with this, but of course you have to gauge on how, 1, powerful your blender is, and 2, how soupy you want your ricotta going into your lasagna. All right, so I'm gonna move back over the other side and I'll show you the next. Put together the rest of the lasagna, just simply made layers of what we talked about before. Now, I'm going to finish up the very last of the tomato, thinly sliced like we talked about, with the bread knife like we talked about. And now I have also spread now I'm putting these slices kind of openly, kind of 3 to a row. Now I've also spread the tofu mixture evenly over the raw lasagna noodles. There. So now I'm going to take a little more garlic powder, shake it over the top, because this is really going to be the top of our lasagna. So we want to center everything. We want to spray it nicely with olive oil. I do another layer of the nutritional yeast. And we've done several ladles of the broth. Just over the top, just to make sure those noodles really cook al dente. And I love the vegan cheese. So we want to make sure we do a nice layer of the vegan mozzarella. Now notice this is the first time we've been using any type of cheese substitute type product other than the nutritional yeast. That's because that vegetables and fruits really make their own beautiful place amongst our diet, and we don't need to replace things we don't want in the long run. We really don't. Now, I put this on top just because of what we're used to with lasagna. Now, if you were raised a vegan, then of course you can skip this step. Or if you're just really trying to not go with anything that's cheese-like, feel free to skip this step and just go with the nutritional yeast, or just go with another layer. You can also double the recipe on the tofu that we did in the blender a touch ago, and do a beautiful layer of that covered by a little extra. Well, baby, she is going into a 395 oven for about an hour and a half. So it takes a little bit of time. So recognize that, dinner will be delayed if you've gotten a late start. Thanks so much, y'all. See you later. This is Barbie.